Hey y'all. This morning is one of those mornings where the coffee cannot be strong enough. There is no blend that is strong enough. I was awoken from a nap. The kids were up all night last night, just like it felt like whack-a-mole. One would go to sleep and the other would wake up, which usually is no big deal, but I was taking a little nap this morning and was awoken to my child covered in my favorite lipstick. Like, covered. So it's just been one of those funny things where it's like you have to laugh, but the last thing you probably want to do is clean up a lipstick covered child. But anyways, all that to say, what I'm going to be doing this morning is making some sourdough and sipping this coffee real slow while the girls are with daddy.
For mama. Lily, smile for mama.
I don't know. I don't know. Let me see your face. So the recipe I'm going to be making today is for a sourdough loaf. I got this from the King Arthur website. That's a flour that we use, and for me, I've never actually made one of those circular sourdough loaves, which are really typical, really beautiful. When you Google like sourdough, that's probably what's going to come up as a recipe for one of those circular loaves. But for us, I wanted to make sure that we could have like sandwiches and grilled cheese and things like that were practical. And so I really wanted to have a loaf that I could slice. And so I found a recipe that used one of these pans, just a regular loaf pan, and it's worked out super well. It's really practical, and although maybe not as beautiful as those circular loaves, really fits better for like our family's needs. So the main thing with sourdough, it can feel intimidating, but it's not at all. The main thing is just having a starter. I got the recipe or the concoction for my starter from a website called Homestead and Chill. And this woman, Deanna, oh my gosh, she has amazing resources on her website, homesteadandchill.com. So the starter is super easy. It's only 3 ingredients. Let me grab mine. So the ingredients, you just grate an apple, like an organic apple, put it in the bottom, and add flour and water, and she gives you the ratios. And then let it sit for about a week, and you have to like discard half of it and feed it more flour and water, I think twice throughout the week before your starter's complete. But then it's your starter for as long as you want to keep it. So I've had this one for probably a little over a month now, and I just keep, every time I use it, discard some, I feed it. Or if I don't make a loaf of bread that week and I just discard half, can compost it, so I put it in the compost, and then I add more flour and water to feed it, and it just keeps it going. So it smells really like what you think of as fermented foods. It's a little bit like acidic. It smells really wonderful. And before I fed my sourdough starter, it was like down to here. I fed it 2 nights ago, I think, and just left the lid on, and look how much it's expanded. So this is a really, really good starter for us to bake with, because it's going to have a lot of that good sourdough flavor. So again, I'll put a link to the sourdough loaf recipe that I love down in the notes section of this video, but let's get started. So another thing I love about this recipe is that instead of taking all day or all night, really it takes like 3 hours from start to finish, and most of that time is it rising and then baking. So it's really like hands-off time. This recipe is so easy when it comes to the world of sourdough. You don't have to let it sit for 24 hours. What I like to do is whenever I am letting my dough rise, I like to put it outside in the sun so it kind of like gets warm and more bubbly and rises better. But today it's really cold and it's really overcast. So what I'm gonna do, because our house is kind of chilly, is turn the oven on to the lowest degree that it can go. And then I crack the door just like so, and let my dough sit in there and turn the oven off. So it just gets warm, it doesn't bake it, it doesn't melt the plastic wrap, but it just is a warm place for it to rise. Zoe's playing in the background. So one thing I've really been loving is this bees wrap. I ordered this off of Amazon, but I think on Homestead and Chill's site, she has directions on how to make your own beeswax wrap. But I use this whenever I am letting the dough rise instead of plastic wrap. So sometimes when I've used plastic wrap, when I pull it off, it pulls at the top of the dough and it kind of like sinks or flattens all that beautiful rise. With this, it's never stuck to my dough, so when I pull it off, especially when it's rising in the pan right before it's gonna go in the oven, I still keep that nice rise with the top of the bread. One of my most recent projects has been gathering recipes. I got this box, I think for my wedding, with some recipe cards, and it kind of sat on my kitchen counter for a long time until I realized that I don't like looking at a screen or an iPad or a phone or a laptop when I'm cooking. A, because I'm like a really messy cook, so my hands are always covered in things, but B, it's just really nice to disconnect totally from like the screen, and cooking is a way that I get to do that, is to disconnect. So I have just a gold mine of recipes in here from both Reed's side of the family and mine, and it's been really fun to contact people and kind of get their famous recipes for my collection. But what's really special is when it's in their handwriting. So like my grandmother, she makes the best squash casserole, and it's something that I want to make for every Thanksgiving. And so I have it written in her handwriting, which is so just beautiful and classic. Mine is like all over the place, but these are things that I hope that I'm gonna treasure forever. Having these little mementos of people I love. And that's really the beauty that I've been learning about food and cooking, is that it's a way for us to preserve our people. It's a way for us to carry on tradition, but also like memories. So my grandma with the squash casserole, that's something I want my girls to cook one day and continue to carry on her spirit and carry on kind of those memories that I had of her making squash casserole, eating squash casserole at Thanksgiving. So food is powerful in that way, if we allow it to be, and if we move a little slower and intentionally with our cooking and nourishing our families. So just to be clear, I am not Betty Crocker, always in an apron. This is also my life, is screaming kids and lots of bouncing. So I hope I don't make you seasick watching me bounce. But one of the things that I've really been pondering and just like sitting with while my bread rises is the idea of the fruits of the Spirit. So this year, I know a lot of people got into like baking and homesteading and gardening, which is amazing. It's awesome. There's not a cap on how many people can do that. And I think it's really good for our souls to do these things, to go back to basics. But I know for me, with the personal journey this year is with the election and everything going on with the race relations and I don't know, just the state of the world. There was a lot of grief and suffering and pain. Out of that has come a lot of hope and understanding and learning, which is good. We're definitely not where we need to be. It's not at the finish line by any means, but I think some beauty has come out of all of this pain and suffering this year. All that to say, I found myself like Googling how to hold onto hope when the world is crashing around you. Like, that was a Google search I did. I don't know what was going through my head or where I was at in life at that moment, but probably having 2 young kids, seeing what was going on with politics and just, it was like the world was on fire every single day when you turned on the news. It made me realize that like I needed to do some spiritual inventory. Like, so much of my foundation or my okayness was based on, you know, the current events or, you know, how stocks were doing or things like that. And it was like, that's not me. And I had to be reminded that God has been here before, right? Like, this is not the worst that it's ever been. Like, people have had to hold on to their faith when things felt really shaky and uncertain, and they didn't have control over the situation. Like, over and over and over again. in the Bible, that's what is modeled. So one of the ways that I did the spiritual inventory quickly was I remembered the Bible study song from like Vacation Bible School when I was growing up. The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I was like, how many of those things do I like really feel like I'm experiencing in my life? And there weren't a lot. Like I was not putting out a lot of really good vibes here at home. Not love, joy, peace, patience. Not patience for sure, goodness, kindness, faithfulness. And I'm not like self-deprecating, but I'm just saying like that was a quick way that I did an inventory and realized, whoa, like my compass has gotten off. Like I am so swept up in what is right in front of me that I can't see the big picture. And for me, my faith and God, that's the big picture, the reminder. So coming back around, the message throughout all that was like, well, what do I do now? Do I need to just like do more Bible studies, or do I need to like go to church more, or do the online thing, or like how's this gonna work? And the message was just like, go back to basics. Like go back to simplify, do not add more. Take away, right? Like take away watching the news every single morning. Like take away just like scrolling through the feed to see what else is on fire today. Take away, you know, all the pressure to fix the world in this moment. Like that has been transformative for me, right? Is like baking bread and teaching my kids about goodness through just trying to model that, and patience through trying to model that. Trying to be more attentive and present with my partner. Like simplifying things lets the best in you come out. I really do believe that. Like going back to basics, gardening, cooking, crafting, those types of things remind me of of my foundation, which is to really influence and nurture these little humans I have at home so that they can go out and influence their world and their kids and make a difference. So I don't know, that's just my thought while my bread rises. And to be clear, like it is righteous to be angry, especially as a mama, right? Like these days, it is righteous to be angry and to channel that anger into like making positive change, donating to worthy causes, like volunteering time, collaborating with the community. Like I'm not saying just sit at home and bake bread and let the world just crash around you. But I am saying like if you're neglecting these people and these things at home because the world feels so crushing, like all the energy is like outside of like you and your home, like that's imbalanced, right? So like making sure things are good here is important to me, and making sure things are good here is important to me. And I know that's a privilege, like getting to simplify. I do understand that. But also don't neglect yourself, don't neglect your home because the external world is on fire. Because that's like, we have been given that spoiler alert, right? Like the world is on fire and has been for thousands of years because it's run by humans and we tend to mess things up. So anyways, spiritually realigning, at home realigning, and just trying to understand where my sphere of influence is the most powerful and using that platform, aka my kids, maybe YouTube, who knows, to enact some positive change. All right, so it rose for about an hour in the oiled bowl that I put in the oven, and then I placed it in the loaf pan and let it rise for another about hour and a half, and baked it, and voila, here is our beautiful sourdough sandwich bread. So it's not super thick, like I haven't been able to get it really tall, but it is perfect for little sandwiches, for grilled cheese. So we love it, and it's more practical for us than a round loaf. Anyways, so it smells amazing, it tastes really good. I might have nibbled off the corner, but we're set for the week. So I do this every week for our family. Zoe and I are about to go harvest some collard greens. This is my first time actually cooking collards. I will enjoy them. My husband really loves them. But we're gonna go get some from the garden and see how they turn out tonight for dinner. So alas, the dragon tongue beans have given way to the cold. I'm gonna have to rip those out. It was a noble try, but next year I'll definitely start them earlier for a fall harvest. Lesson learned. And then definitely getting some like bug damage back here. I don't know what is eating my brassicas, but they kind of look like Swiss cheese. So I'm gonna have to really figure that out. If you have any ideas, please let me know. The sun finally came out and it is gorgeous out here. Tonight we are having pork chops with collard greens, okra, roasted radishes, and roasted sweet potatoes. And I gotta brag, super groovy. I grew all of those vegetables in our backyard. The sweet potatoes have been curing in our pantry for about 3.5 weeks. You have to let them just sit in like a cool, dry place for a few weeks so the sugars really meld and they taste sweet instead of starchy. So I'm excited to try them tonight. I have my pork chops going in the air fryer. The best way to make them. They're so tender. Totally don't dry out in the air fryer. We got that last Christmas and love it. Anyways, cornbread, okra, sweet potatoes, radishes, and greens. We are set for dinner. Thank you for hanging out with me today. May you find the bounty in your own life and all the beauty that it holds. Have a great night. Until next time.